Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Time for second best of 3 of the day here for the ESL One Genting SEA qualifiers. My name is Dragoon. I'm joined by Skim Gaming, and we have quite a good match at our hands. Clutch Gamers versus Fire Dragoons, who've been on the up and up, I would say, from what I've been able to see.
Yeah, they've been, they've been struggling, of course, but they've had a couple promising performances lately. And I think this is why this matchup is going to be very exciting, because, we've had a couple of 2-0s in this qualifier thus far. And I feel like this is the one that has the potential to be the first 2-1. Just because we did watch Clutch Gamers yesterday perform very, very well as a team. Same story with them, by the way. You know, initially they were pretty, shaky, to say the least, but lately they've been looking at least more promising. So I'm hoping that this is going to be an exciting one. Bans or picks thus far, we have the Shadow Demon first pick from Fire Dragoon. Clutch Gamers yesterday, they always opened with the Bane Earth Spirit. Could definitely still run it again. I do think that's a very viable support duo, and they sort of fared well of just having that very stable basis foundation for that draft, and then just go there from do whatever they want, really.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have heroes that cannot really be easily counted out, per se, right? That always going to have an impact. Like the Bane, it's super, super stable. And that's what makes it such a good first pick, or first 1-2 punch, because, yeah, there it is already. I'll see whether they want to combo it up immediately with the Earth Spirit that you mentioned, but there's plenty of other heroes that fit that same bill, right? You show these 2 picks, the other team kind of knows what it's about, obviously. They know what they have to expect, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can counter it out easily, right?
I will say that I do think that Fire Dragoon, obviously Fire Dragoon has been trying to study this team going into this matchup, right? But I do feel like this Shadow Demon is a direct response to this double pick Bane Earth Spirit that they've seen, that we've seen yesterday. Even though they now pick up the Omni Knight, but against that double support combo, Shadow Demon is actually a pretty strong defensive support. The defensive disruption is really strong against any sort of Fiend's Grip or boulder smash initiation, and he has a lot of offensive potential as well, right? We've seen Shadow Demon being one of the sort of strongest support lately, really. I mean, VP even taking it to the offlane, that's how strong the hero is. With the right items, with the right amount of farm. Despite the nerf in 7.07, what is it? C? B? No, it was B. I have no idea what it was. But yeah, the latest nerf, Soul Catcher spawning an extra illusion upon killing the enemy only from level 10 onwards. It's not really that big of a nerf, really, if you think about it, because the early illusions that you get, they're kind of nice, but they last for a couple of seconds 10, because 15, 20,
the one major part of that nerf is that you now have to make the choice getting into it. I don't remember what the other talent choice was.
I think it's the experience choice. So basically now, well, they removed the, I think it was plus something strength.
Yep.
I think it's 10 strength or something. And the other one is the experience one. So yeah, like I said, being forced to choose between those two is definitely quite the nerf. But again, I think with Shadow Demon, it is a very acceptable sort of compromise, because again, that ability going forward is really strong against carries. Suddenly you have a super strong illusion for 60 seconds. That's insane.
You lead off with the disruption, you already get the 2 illusions for a couple of seconds to help you get that kill in the first place. But yeah, it is very strong. I also know a few people who tend to run it as a core more often than anything else, and no one ever really expects it on the other team, but it always kind of works out. Maybe because of that too. Maybe it's just not really ingrained into the mindset of people these days. But we'll see. It might just very well be the classic support in that saving role, essentially. Tiny also very different approaches to that hero throughout the regions. In CS in Europe, it's mostly run as a core, either out of the safe lane or even mid lane, even with Tinies, even with IOs these days, like the old classic. Has a bit of a resurgence there, depending on the team. Obviously, it's still not the easiest strat to pull off. But in SEA, I've seen it more often as the 3 or 4 role, just roaming around, just making good use of the toss, just getting to the limits of that particular spell, just tossing people back into your tower. It's kind of a classic one, but I've also seen Tinies toss their teammates back away from the enemies. Right, this is a very good, nifty way to do it. So we'll see what they can do here. up against Clutch Gamers, who are looking for some of their extra cores or perhaps another support here. Is they did go for the Omni Knight rather than the Earth Spirit, which has since been banned out.
The tiny, you know, the whole like 3-4 position tiny thing. I do think it's a very good way of running the tiny, just because it adds a bit of variety and flexibility to the draft. It's not obviously straightforward whether or not it's going to be a 4 or like a 3 position, or if it's going to be a core after all. That said, I do think there are some obvious flaws with that hero in that position, which you know, he can be very slow. I mean, he's very mana hungry as well, and I feel like there's a lot of wasted potential with the tree grabbing ability, not using it, you know, to farm aggressively and be a core. But we shall see, I suppose. If he is a core, of course, with an extra status resistance, it's going to be much more difficult for Clutch Gamers to actually bring him down.
Oh yeah.
We have 2 heroes with disabled, but the tiny with a extra status resistance is so difficult to bring down.
Oh yeah.
And as we see this Elder Titan, it most likely eliminates the tiny as a 4 position, but still could be a 3 position.
Yeah. A lot of flexibility in this draft, and it's what I always like to see out of teams. Just not show off their cards as basically for as long as you can, right? Because that creates that certain bit of like the other team isn't quite sure what they want to make of it, and maybe you can also have the use the flexibility to then throw a curveball, just switch your own plans, and do something else that is still viable with the heroes that you picked because of that flexibility. But yeah, Elder Titan, a lot of very fun to watch in my opinion in most games, and can have a ridiculous impact too, not just with the storms, but also the natural order aura. Like that was talked about the most even back when he was first popular, really.
And it's a bit of a classic combo, right? The disruption into the stomp from the Elder Titan. Sets it up pretty nicely, and in most cases it should likely be a kill because you have a lot of magic damage from the Shadow Demon with the Soul Destroyer. Phantom Assassin. Sure. PA coming out now as a core for Clutch Gamers. I like this combo. PA Omni Knight. It's a strong combo because PA generally does rely on magic immunity in order to be able to do stuff in team fights and in engagements, but doesn't have to build a BKB early on because of the repel. They have a lot of killing potential. PA as a carry wants to be active early on, together with Sand King Bane. There's a lot of kill potential here, of course. And you know, the supports on Fire Dragoon's side aren't necessarily that tanky either. You know, they have the Shadow Demon that, if you force him into using a disruption on himself, a defensive one, that's already a pretty huge win in a team fight. And of course, even if he does disrupt himself, he's still very squishy, right? And I mean, we've all been there. We've all been crit by a PA dagger.
Oh yeah, 1 dagger and I'm die. I think that was a popular meme all over Reddit at some point, and might see that here, right? Especially if you go down that minus armor route with a potential Desolator and a talent that you get for an extra -4. We'll see though. Like the other way that PAs are played is just go down the farming route with the Battle Fury, and well, now the Tinker, it's a bit of a double-edged sword too, because on the one hand you have Laser, which is going to be annoying, it's kind of forcing you into a BKB on its own almost. Not the worst BKB game in general though, with everything else that Fire Dragoon already have, so it's not necessarily one of these moments where, oh shit, I have to buy a BKB now, but I don't really want to, right? You're going to get a lot of value out of that eventually. Even on top of the repels, you're going to have plenty of magic immunity to throw out throughout all stages of the game then. But yeah, I don't know. What do you make of this Tinker?
I think it's a strong pick. You can TP onto the Spirit, of course, so that's like one of the like cheeky combos that you can run, right? You can get easy access into the fight, which is always what the Tinker wants. Pretty good against the PA in general. You know, as you mentioned, the Laser is pretty strong here. Right now, they don't have any. Well, obviously, once the Sand King has a Blink Dagger, it's going to be much easier to pick the Tinker off, right? But until the Sand King does have the Blink Dagger, they don't have a natural counter against the Tinker. So that's definitely going to be an issue going forward here. Tinker's also, in a way, or rather, the lineup in a way, right now, is they have two sort of like frontliners with the Elder Titan, with the Tiny, even with the Shadow Demon in a way, because you're going to be very in the opponent's face, right? You're creating chaos, and then you have a Tinker, you're just throwing the marches, throwing rockets in the back lines. So I like this quite a bit. For the laning stage, he might need a little bit of help. I do expect Clutch Gamers to run a dual lane with a Bane and PA mid. just is super annoying to deal with as a Tinker. But I mean, again, we've talked about this quite a lot today, quite a lot yesterday. Even if you do badly in the mid lane, as long as you just have some sort of fallback in the jungle, you're always going to do fine anyway. So I don't expect to see, like, I think this Tinker should be quite fine in this game for now. And they do ban out the Storm Spirit, so there's no natural... Yeah. There's not a lot of... there aren't a lot of natural counters left, with the Clockwork also banned out earlier. I think the one that I can think of, and I keep bringing this up with the Ember Spirit, right? I doubt we'll see that, though, because I think if they pick up the Ember Spirit, then they leave themselves very vulnerable. They don't really have a hard carry anymore to counter the Dusa, which they definitely need. So I feel like they need to commit to something more stronger, and they need to make sure that the Tinker is just held down in the mid game, in the early game, and then in the mid game they should just thrive with hyper aggression from Sand King, PA, Omni Knight. Like they can just run at you. What are you gonna do?
Pretty much. And okay, the Invoker.
Not what I expected.
Yeah, not really. I was thinking maybe they want, as you said, maybe throw a Phantom Assassin in mid. Try and deal with that dual lane and pick up another hero for Chappie to farm up on, something like that can scale extremely well into the late game, like Terrorblade was still in the pool, for example. It's a bit difficult with an Illusion Heroes up against Medusa, but with the lockdown that you have, you can probably make that work if you really want to. But instead, they go for the other route, like pick up something with Mana Burn, and Invoker was the only hero that really fits into the middle lane that has that, without throwing any sort of other curveballs, like a PL mid going to Fusel Blade, or an AM mid, or something crazy like that.
In a way, and hear me out, but in a way, it is sort of a hard carry as well, because PA is still going to be the hyper-aggressive hero in this match, in this lineup, and it's going to be Invoker to fall back, farm the jungle, split push if anything, and just farm the waves and have the Midas. You know, he's going to be the farming one, but he can still be part of those fights with Sunstrike. You know, Fiend Script into Sunstrike, Burst Strike into Sunstrike. There's a lot of options for him to be involved in kills without exposing himself. And then, like you said, later on, when he has, you know, the Aghanims and, like, when he's, like, to level 20 or whatever, he's going to be able to deal with the Medusa in some way, together with the PA. Like, obviously, he can't do it by himself. But, so that is definitely an approach. I just think that, I think this is a little bit risky, because I think this relies a lot on them to actually have that mid-game success. And I just don't see them doing that well in the laning stage with the Invoker against the Tinker. I feel like if this was PA versus PA and Bane versus Tinker mid lane, I do think they have a much easier time. But I'm not saying they're not going to do well, because, you know, Invoker Bane is still a very potent combo if they choose to run it. But at the same time, Invoker is one of those heroes that you don't want to duel lane with. You don't want to have the Bane in the mid lane because of the Invoker. So technically, I'm not sure if they are even going to have the Bane in the mid lane for extended periods of time. And then 1v1 Tinker versus Invoker, it can be a toss-up, really. I've actually seen the game yesterday from the EU qualifiers in this qualifier, where somebody built there was this exact matchup, Invoker versus Tinker, and what the Invoker did was he just maxed Quas just to have that region against the laser. So any laser he would throw out, he would basically region off in like 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, definitely some interesting dynamics that come into play here. We'll see whether they can make it work. But outside of that, you mentioned the Sunstrike kills all over the map, like Burst Strike, Nightmare even early on. Can very easily set up for that unless someone have ways to counterplay that, and that's the kind of thing, right? That's the one way that Invoker can catch back up. He doesn't have the easiest ways to farm jungles as quickly as a Shadow Fiend could, but it's probably gonna be on Chappie. Like, if I know him, then he's gonna go down that battlefield route into the farming mode as well.
He has to. The thing is, if he goes any other route, he won't be able to keep up with Medusa's farm. PA doesn't flash farm as well as other heroes, really. She can sort of pseudo jump from camp to camp with the blink strike, but it's not like an actual blink, so it's really difficult to actually farm quickly. And mid lane looks like the Sand King is going to be the one to sort of try and zone out the Tinker, maybe? I don't really think he can do much in this lane, especially since he skilled Burst Strike. I feel like with Caustic Finale, he could be a little bit more effective, but yeah, in this mid lane, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sand King just disappeared after like a minute and just never came back.
Yeah. Well, down bottom, Fly Soul's actually taking quite a bit of harassment. Got a Titan hanging around here, make sure the Tiny has a good time, because he's not a classic offlaner, right? He cannot really stick around here alone without being punished for it. So, but yeah, turning this into a dual lane up against the PA, maybe you can pick up a quick stick. Yeah, Tiny already has one. So the dagger spam is going to be mitigated in that sense. And then you have the Medusa up top here with the Shadow Demon still helping out. Hard to zone out the Omni Knight, I guess, without any further rotations, but still lanes that you should be able to win just in terms of CS, if nothing else.
For sure.
Bottle launch actually hits Flash Soul down bottom. No toss just yet, so no ability to toss him back or anything.
But yeah, about the top lane, it's actually surprisingly not that...
Well, that's all Tiny. It's actually gonna get caught, perhaps, in a nice little stomp or try and turn things around. Tiny still proving to be quite tanky, but that Stout Shield still has... Oh, the Sunstrike coming through! But it is actually...
Not the first blood. Yeah.
Not the first blood, just a split second before that, Elder Titan brought down a big old club, and now, bit of a turnaround here, and extra stomp, not enough mana for it, or time even.
Very close
to just
getting
use that to run away.
Kill.
Yeah.
Time.
That was so close though, that was like half a second off.
Pretty important actually to not give the Invoker that first blood, because in the lanes, you know, we did see the Sand King being in the mid lane for the first minute, roughly. And that did give the Invoker a little bit of a head start, but as you can see from the CS, Tinker caught up. Yeah. That's just the power of the Tinker in this lane, and Invoker generally is not a great laner the first 3-4 minutes, and giving him that first blood would have been able to, you know, giving him like an earlier Glove of Haste, maybe additional regen. So it's really important to deny all of that.
He already has that Midas queued up, right? It's Invoker in the laning stage is basically a race to get that Midas as quickly as possible, so he can scale into these levels and towards that Aghanim Scepter to really be combat effective. And anything he can do to slow that down, even if it's just getting the first blood before he can get it, it's gonna make a difference.
Mid lane, the Sand King is smoked up, trying to go for a gank here. It is a level 3 Invoker, almost 4. If he hits level 4, it's going to be a lot of damage, but I'm not sure they can really get this because the creep wave is pushing in.
Actually, as I say that, it's pushing in a little bit.
Now
There's going to be double range creeps, and as soon as Tinker steps into the river, Sand King is going to, yeah, there it is. Gonna try to make that rotation, and first strike will connect here with the help of the Cold Snap. Sunstrike on the money as well. Isn't enough damage is the other question. Last right click not coming through here thanks to the laser. So that's a play there from Sarah to turn things around and prevent that. Already it's far enough away from the Sand King, so well, still alive.
Yeah, and that's a wasted rotation from the Sand King. Not that Sand King really needs to do much this early on, but ideally, obviously, you know, you want to have successful rotations. And at least you force out a lot of regen from the Tinker as well. Like, he's pretty low on mana right now, so he can't really use the laser as much as he wants to. And he even doesn't get a rune, so he's really screwed right now.
Yeah. What they do though, scout out that these Ancients are being stacked for the Medusa later. So it's something that they have to keep an eye on, right? It's not just the Tinker, right? It's also Medusa. Both of these heroes, if they get out of control, if they start stacking up more and more net worth, they're gonna get harder and harder to deal with here because we don't have these classic counters that are easy to execute.
And this is where I think the Radiant or Clutch Gamers feel or should feel pressured or likely feel pressured, because this tri-lane bottom or like these two supports don't do anything for them right now, right? They're just sitting here effectively trying to intimidate the opponents, and you know, whereas the other two supports, they're just stabilizing the lane. Elder Titan makes sure the Tiny never dies. Shadow Demon zones out the Omni Knight, pulled once or twice, and they're just there to stabilize the lanes. Whereas the other two supports, they're not really stabilizing this lane because you can't really prevent the Tiny from farming this lane.
Yeah.
And they can't really find a kill either, so it's rough for them, and they need a good start. The Sand King needs, like I mentioned it in the draft, right? The one thing that can threaten the Tinker in the mid game is the Sand King Blink Dagger. But as it stands right now, it's going to take him forever to actually get there.
Oh yeah. A long ways away, but yeah, it's, as I said, Tiny, even without the Elder Titan there, it's one of these heroes that's not as susceptible to these kind of Sunstrike plays because of his high health pool right now. It's, I mean, it's not even 6 minutes in, it's sitting at 1140, and it's also about to finish up the power treads. Also has 11 stick charges to work with, and you can't really kill him unless he's just super overextended it alone, right? With or without Sunstrike, so you also can't really rotate the Bane out because he's just gonna annoy Chappie to high heavens. Kind of in this impossible situation where you know that you... I mean, they must realize it too, right? They realize that this is not the ideal way that this early game is going, but they can't really switch it up until they get these extra levels on I guess thinking as well, like higher levels on the Burrow Strike that have the extra range, and also his Omni Knight. It's going to be down to him as well to try and make something happen with what he's getting out of in his offlane.
That's the kind of the weakness of the lineup, because with other heroes, let's imagine it's a Brewmaster instead of the Omni Knight. With the Brewmaster, you know, alright, once he hits level 6, we can make a rotation. You smoke up, TP to the bottom lane, and maybe we could try to go for a kill. The question is, what hero here can alleviate that pressure by going for like, such a smoke gang kill? Is it going to be the PA? She doesn't have like a significant level that she needs to hit. Yeah, I guess level 6 with a crit chance, with a crit in general, but that's not really that big of a like an ability that you can rely on, right? Then you know, all right, this is going to secure a kill for sure. Similarly, the Invoker is a hero that just wants to static farm. He's not going to be that hero to just, you know, oh, I'm going to smoke gang, we're going to use Meteor or whatever. Oh, maybe that Sunstrike does it.
Did hit.
Oh.
Just in the edge there to make sure that they secure the kill. So this is like the one thing that they have got going for them. If they find these initiations, if they land these Sunstrikes, that they can, especially on heroes like Medusa, it's so invaluable. Trying to slow them down to buy yourself the time that you need. Gonna try again on Tinker, perhaps. No mana here for Sarah, so no laser to keep him safe. Or her safe. I don't know.
Ajit. Well,
Ajit,
yeah, it's difficult because we don't have a ticker right now, but that I believe is Ajit, and I believe he's dead.
Yeah.
So this is Wits.
Chappie even make a rotation in, so just make absolutely sure.
That allows they know now they can dive fly solo bottom because Chappie TP to the mid lane. So this should be a dead bane.
Well, Brainside will delay this a little bit. No more teleports though, and yeah, the aggro's being shifted to creeps. So they'll get away with that scot-free. Courier though? Is the Courier gonna take tower shots? No. Not happening. Toss up a Chappie down on half health actually with the Avalanche. A couple of extra right clicks. One point up on the blur, but now the TPs are coming through. The Sunstrike will actually snipe off another target.
Well done.
Palm player 3-0-1, so part of all of the 4 kills that they have. Base created, I guess.
Oh, very much so. I guess it is sort of the PA that forces the first rotations. Well, I guess it was more so the sacking, I guess. But yeah, they really need to do something. They need to move more around the map, and it's good. These past 2 minutes, I guess, have been really good to them. But they need to keep it up at some point, because if the lanes just continue to stay the way they are, it's not going to go their way.
Yep.
The Deuce is always going to outfarm them. The Tinker is really difficult to contest. I mean, we've seen them try. Yeah, they killed him, once now? But that's not... It doesn't really matter, right?
Yep.
Killing the Tinker once doesn't really matter in this stage of the game. So they really need to... Yeah, they really need to move things up, and yeah, as I say that, Chappie is smoked up.
Yeah. We were talking about this, like Chappie being that the more active hero on this here with Invoker, taking more of that one in terms of the farm priority. But if you don't connect with these kind of gangs, you just end up wasting a lot of time. They actually shift around back towards the bottom right now.
That's really good.
Should end up dying. Sunstrike on the money. Not quite enough though with the Storm actually keeping him safe. Fly solo a little bit too late with the rotation, looking for Brain Sap to finish him off.
He's actually getting out of it.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. The Titan turns out to be fairly tanky in his own right.
Oh, 900 HP and the wand. Oh, top lane? They shouldn't be able to get this kill. No.
Repel makes it very hard. Yeah.
Makes it really difficult.
The upside is that was a very early minus for the Invoker. Hit it like at 8.5 minutes or so.
All things considered, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, he did even go for the Ring of Basilius. So that slowed it down a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a good Midas timing. And in general, again, the Invoker is definitely, without a doubt, he's the carry of this team. He needs the farm priority, and he's going to split push. And I like it. They actually removed the Medusa mid. So they need to contest this Invoker, because the Tinker is going to fall back into the jungle now. So they need somebody to contest the Invoker. They can't just give him a free lane.
Yeah.
I like this a lot. I am honestly wondering if they maybe should... Oh, bottom lane. Nice toss into the Echo Stomp.
Fly Solo gonna get caught by that, but Chappie coming in to try and help Brainsap keeping him alive. Nightmare taken over here, so Tiny can get the last punches in, but now plenty of time for Omni Knight to come in. Slowing it down, 2 points up in the Degen Aura. Stick Charters are actually ready to turn around, so another combo available for the Tiny. Also has the Soul Rings, always plenty of mana to work with, and that's a little bit too scary. Even with the Omni Knight here, as he's completely out of mana.
Nice combo indeed, and this I really like this from Fire Dragoon. You know, contesting this bottom lane as much as they are right now.
burst strike just off the mark here. Alacrity turning around in time.
Dire's middle tower is
Not sure if they would have gotten the kill here. There was a Shadow Demon there with defensive disruption. And Chappie, like, you can only do damage if you get super lucky with the crits, right?
So the Dire did lose the mid tower now, and I just don't like the way they're like. I praised them before, right? They TP in the Dusa, they don't give him a free lane, and then they move the Dusa out because they move the Tinker back in. But the Tinker is always going to move between lane and jungle. So now they give away a free tower. I just don't think that should have happened. I feel like if they just keep the Dusa mid against the Invoker and then have the Tinker in the safe lane or in the jungle, top lane Dusa.
Defensive disruption here, Sunstrike, splitting the wicket.
Radiant's top tower is
So disaster here on the Shadow Demon, certainly helping out his carry with the disruption, not just blocking some of the damage, but also most importantly making sure that the Sunstrike doesn't hit.
This is why I thought this was a good pick in the first place, you know, against these kind of type of ganks, being able to have like a defensive ability. This was also, what was it, the last series was it, I think, where that was an issue, where we just didn't have that defensive support for the carry. And I think if you're running a Dusa as a solo core effectively, I mean, you know, Tinker and it's tiny as a supporting core of anything, like the Dusa is your win condition, so you need something to support it. Oh, Fiend Script onto the Elder Titan. Once again, he survives.
Yeah.
Disruption helped though. If that Sunshine goes through and the Fiend Script goes through and then they brain sap, he's probably dead. So disruption once again.
It's a little bit ambitious here to go for this play. Now that's very long. It's a pretty good ability on a very long cooldown. So.
Thing is though, they don't invest anything except for the Bane, really. I mean, the Invoker can just do this while farming, obviously. So, but they force, or they keep two supports busy. The Shadow Demon and the ET, and that just gives them enough room to push this tower top, which they won't get, but still. They remove the tower from the map, which is really important. Any map control they can get onto the Tinker and the Dusa is really important here from here on onwards, because it just denies farm. And because Dusa and Tinker want both of them want a lot of farm. And until like Tinker has Blink BOTs, they can't really split the map too well if they lose all their towers. So taking these early towers is really important.
Sometimes you get a bit of a freebie there. Disruption coming through, the Sunstruck just in case actually turns around for another ultimate, so it's gonna have to be try to get the kill in the end instead.
We have a Shadow Blade on the Tiny. This is actually such a... He's the most farmed on the Dire team. That is insane.
It's not something that you're sad about necessarily, and
it's not, but it's obviously, you know, he's your awfully hero. Ideally, the Dusa is ahead of him.
Well,
fortunately, though,
I do believe it has been scouted out, but it's deep up so out, right? So I really like this warning from Radiant side. Like they realize, all right, as you said before, both Tinker as well as Medusa, they want to farm a lot, so they plop down these two very deep walls to get good coverage over the jungle, and ideally you have one on the other side jungle as well. So just keep tabs on that, see if you can contest it, or alternatively just put on pressure on the lanes, take some more towers. Yeah, there's still tier 1 in the bottom.
And you can tell that they feel the pressure as well, because neither the Dusa nor the Tinker are in that jungle farming right now. I mean, the Tinker's moving in now, but that's because the Shadow Demon is here. And speaking of, the Shadow Demon just dropped 3 sentries trying to find the wards, because he knows they have wards 100% in that jungle. He just can't find them. Actually, he should be able to find one, but he just ran past that one for some reason. But still, there's 2 wards in there. It's really difficult, honestly, for the Dire side right now to farm effectively.
It is on bottom. The stomp there from the Elder Titan makes sure that Satana still has to come in deep, try and get the kill, but he does get the purification up before the disruption. Now Shadow Demon is sniping up himself. Satana popped another Guardian Angel plus Repel, try to get himself out of there, but the rest of his team not willing to help him out with all of this big commitment. Turns out they don't need to. He's absolutely fine.
This is really troublesome. Losing the Tiny that early, because Tiny is effectively the sort of enabler in this team. He's the one to enable those kills. If the Tiny was alive there, they'd probably kill the Omni Knight. But yeah, right now the Omni Knight is very difficult to bring down in general. I mean, he has a Yield Scepter early on. Like, this is a very farmed Omni Knight. He also had a pretty good time. They couldn't really zone him out effectively, and because the Dusa rotated out early, it just gave the Omni Knight a lot of free time and free space. And obviously the 2 towers helped. All Dusa is getting scouted out by the Invoker. I'm not sure Invoker can kill her by himself. And now he also knows that they have a ward there.
I don't know, level 14 you already have the axe. So he's hitting every timing in the book, essentially. So you have a decently powerful
Dire's
EMP.
bottom tower is under attack.
I don't know, like
it's not impossible by any means.
Yeah, it's not impossible. If it'll take some time. So I'd rather fight with the rest of the team. Disaster just gets blown up by that. Now that is some NATO EMP coming out instead. Invokes that ice wall. Keep Electric slow. The meatball has to be dodged. That's setting up for the first strike from Logan.
Alright, he would have definitely
Great
been able to
execute.
kill her by himself if he actually gets that kill. If he actually gets the pick off.
It's not even over yet. He had to look for the tiny. Nice. I'm just tossing back. Still very tanky next to the shrine. But that being forced out is a victory in itself. So yeah, I mean, problem with going on Medusa that deep into it is that there's plenty of TP spots for the rest of the team, so it might not get out. And this one is even a bit of a killing spree on Invoker.
College Gamers just denied one of the few wards that the Dire had out, just in front of the jungle. Like, honestly, I think what College Gamers should do, they should just smoke up and just take complete control of the jungle. Smoke up behind the PA, push the tower top, and just take control of the jungle. Because they just need to choke out the Fire Dragoon out of their own sort of like resources.
Yeah.
Right now the Tinker's farming there, but he's actually very exposed. If they just had any vision there, PA could easily kill him or just jump him at least. This is really strong. This is a really strong performance from Clutch Gamers so far.
Yeah. All this farm this Tinker is taken, that also means that Medusa's not taking that. I mean, they've relegated Alacrity here to the side jungles, also farming up the Ancients. They've stacked it up before, so they're doing what they can to mitigate that and just get away with this greed between these two picks. But now, this could also help if they can find this Invoker, toss back into Alacrity, but they have no detection against the Ghost Walk. Rookie mistake here, and that cost them a really big kill.
Rookie mistake is probably the best way to describe that. It's it would have been a good try, and if they had gotten that kill, that would have been huge. He's the highest net worth. He has a kill streak going for him as well. Very unfortunate. Speaking of unfortunate, they don't get the SK. They do find him in the jungle, but SK with a blink now as well.
Yep.
This is honestly the timing for Clutch Gamers to go. I feel like they should play a little bit more aggressively here. Yeah, they have the Battle Fury on the PA, and she kind of wants the farm, obviously. But I feel like they could be more proactive. Maybe even smoke up on just the Bane and the Sand King. Try to find those kills. Again, with Sunstrike, pretty much anybody can be killed, except for maybe the Medusa.
Middle tower is under attack.
But they should be able to find Tiny, ET, Tinker. They should be able to kill them.
Speaking of Tinker, he's baiting in Omninat a little bit, or trying to at any rate, but with the Repel expiring, cannot continue to chase that. But the rest of this team, still going in deep towards the tier 1 tower, and look at Clutch Gamers. They know that this is happening. They see Sarah, the Yules will cancel the TP in perfect setup for the Invoker. Jeet is just taken care of immediately. Meanwhile, the rest of them trying to get away. Nice little burst strike here onto the Shadow Demon. There'll be a secondary casualty, and they're looking for more. The tornado actually catches the Tiny. They didn't quite have detection at the ready.
Well, actually, they do have.
Yeah, that's Dusted Sand King, but it didn't throw it out.
Didn't know they caught him.
Yeah. Oh, that could have been so much better even than what they already did. But as it stands, that's what you were just asking for, right? Get rest of plays like that, even if the full 5-man lineup is pushing down the tier 1 tower. And instead, it is Clutch Gamers who claim another one of their own. And they don't really want to stop here. Look at where Try is at. Sitting behind, inside the trees. Ready to just blink Burst Strike on just Epicenter. Doesn't even have to use that on the last fight.
They have a lot of kill potential with just these supports. And that's the sort of like the beauty of this lineup, really. Again, you just need the Sand King and the Bane. Just sit somewhere, just pick somebody off, you Sunstrike them. And in most cases, that's a kill. And, you know, Invoker PA can just sit back and farm and try to keep up and try to keep the advantage going. But for now, nobody is really showing. They know that they can't really afford to show on the map. If anyone on Dragoon's side shows, they're likely dead. ET, yeah, he's already getting pinged out. If he shows again, I'm sure they would just blink in.
Yeah.
All mid lane, they ping out the Deuce as well. Could be potentially a kill. I mean, they're all here. Clutch Gamers are all here. They really want blood.
Yeah, this is they're just waiting here. I mean, also very interesting observable placements here. Normally you just pick it up, plop it up on the high ground there. That would be scouting out the Elder Titan, but now he just reveals himself with the Spirit. And that was a mistake. Sunstrike coming through, slowed down by the DJ Aura, just trying to right-click and not wanting to commit too much. Now, okay, Chappie just walks straight into the Stomp. No crit on a dagger, so he'll have to walk out again because, well, March still taking its toll. Didn't want to commit any bigger spells to that.
Ooh, that glyph wasn't good. They just popped the glyph for nothing, really. Oh, top lane, they find the Tiny.
Ooh, the Fiend Script. Chappie's there. There's the one crit. Avalanche. Someone not actually hitting
kill. One swipe with the tree grab. I guess the Avalanche on top of it as well. But still, a good pickup for them, though. The Tiny was doing the right job, really. He just tried split pushing. And he's the core that if he gets picked off, it doesn't really matter that much to the Dire side because effectively this game still revolves around the Tinker and the Dusa. Yeah. So, I mean, as silly as it may sound, but it was space created, literally. Because, of course, 3 TPs off of this bottom lane as well. So this tower is not getting pushed in. And the Dusa, I mean, it's been quiet around the Dusa for a while now. Oh, as I say that, though, the Yules is there.
Calm player to take over. Alakri still get the ultimate off. He triggers the shrine, but it's not enough. Oh.
And this is not even an invoker with like
tries to devo if they realize, hey, there's vision here, but disaster. Well, can't get it off. Will end up falling himself more than likely. Especially, oh, maybe not. Don't want to go in too much closer. Could have been just adding insult to injury, like, oh yeah, they must have vision here. Let me de-ward. Okay, and you're just dead.
Mid lane, fly solo, dies yet again. To the Tiny. This is what this Tiny has to do. He literally just has to create a lot of space for his team. He has to draw the attention. Again, if he trades 1v1, that's totally fine. If he dies, again, as long as it's across the map, it's totally fine.
Yeah. Still is yet to actually turn into anything, because if you look at net worth distribution, Calm player on the Invoker, still very much on top. Chappie, both of them together, and now with the third highest net worth, Omni-Knight. It's all very well spread out. And they're all at least like 2k ahead of the Tinker, which at this point of the game is not ideal, especially considering that they're also even further ahead of the Medusa.
That's the big issue. The Medusa right now just can't catch a break. I mean, she did have a bit of a quiet time for like 2, 3, 4 minutes where she was able to farm up, but she's had such a rough game that she just needs more time really and more space. But as you pointed out, though, the Tinker is doing well. He is the most farmed hero on... Oh, it just barely escapes. Yeah. They know where he is, though. That's the issue. They know where he is, and they know that he's still in here. So they have a burst strike. If they wanted to, they could try it again. But they're not gonna. But yeah, the Tinker, that's...
Radiant's bottom tower.
The reason they picked the Tinker is to stall. Stall for the Dusa as much as possible. So the Tinker is gonna be the crucial hero here for the next 10, 20, 50, 30 minutes, really. If it even gets to that, right?
It is good high ground defense. You also have here the Spirit stomping, slowing things down. So they have some tools to try and help out. But then I'm looking at this Invoker and I'm seeing, hey, he can clean through creepers just as easily. Clean through heroes very easily indeed. He has the Aegis, so can even walk high ground here with Flicks Exort. He's sitting for more than 200 a pop. And he also has Alacrity to work with, like for either him or for Chappie. Just click away at either towers, chip away at them, or just cut down heroes, as I just said. So there's a lot of firepower here that makes it so that if there's even one small step out of bounds for Fire Dragoon, that they'll just be cut down immediately and annihilated. And at this point, with the lanes where they are right now, that also means that you're gonna lose buildings.
For sure. And they really will have to rely on this high ground defense that you mentioned. They do have the heroes to work around it, you know, with the Tinker, with the Elder Titan, even the Tiny to a degree, you know, just being able to jump out, toss somebody back into a very unfavorable position. There's a lot of ways to sort of deal with this, and this is why you see Clutch Gamers respecting this, despite having the Aegis, despite having the numbers advantage as well. They can't just commit to a siege like that. They need more items, especially the PA. Yeah, she has a lot of net worth, but one of those items is a Battlefier, which is a farming item, and the other one is a BKB, which is more of a defensive item, if anything. So Desolator is
coming out now. Just picked it up. And
exactly. This is the kind of item that they need in order to siege high ground, really. With the Alacrity and the Desolator, I could definitely see them trying to siege high ground with Repel, with BKB that could sustain through a lot of the damage and a lot of disables. So if Clutch Gamers wanted to push, I'd say this is the timing with the Aegis.
What the hell was that?
The Ghost Walk?
No, up here, Zenking.
Oh.
They were just standing next to each other for a while as Tinker just walked up the high ground. We're expecting Burst to come out with Chappie. Alright. One crit and then die. Bryani will try to stomp it out, but Chappie just pops the BKB. Now the ultimate from Medusa, trying to slow it down a little bit further and actually turning a few people into stone. Still not enough to help out the other Titan. Satana still running him down. The Cold Snap, Sunstrike. He's just on a different level right now, this Invoker.
They're just going to push on mid. ET, without ET gone, without ET.
Yeah, electricity sweep.
To hold this.
Fucking OP, look at this shit.
Yeah.
Don't even need that on the hero. Alright, Tiny filling back. Maybe can do something. Just throw us on the avalanche. Tries to toss Chappie. Can't even do that. Not a Fiend Scrim. Sunstrike. Not even necessary. Chappie. Some killing spree of his own. Nice little. God, it's not even safe for work anymore. Please look away if you're a child. None of them are buyback. It's only the Tinker, but if you spam March inside the fountain just to survive, that's an issue in its own right. And well, Boker. Phantom Assassin already well at work in this bottom lane with Rax as well.
You know, the dire side have a Medusa and a Tinker, so technically there's... well...
No.
Thank God! Thank God!
They won't make you do that. They won't make you try and
look, you know, as a caster, sometimes you have to give a team the benefit of the doubt, and you don't want to call it too early. But oh my God, this was so over. Clutch Gamers just ran away with this one. I think the first 10 minutes actually were a little bit passive from Clutch Gamers. You know, they were trying to sort of like get the levels first before they actually did something. But once they started doing something...
Yeah, they did get that, right? Especially in Invoker. Once again, I keep coming back to this. There was such a good timing for the Midas. And that translated into so much extra power that he could do. I mean, they never really accounted for him at all. Did they? Right? I mean, he just could do what he wants. 707.
I do think one of the issues was that just giving him that free lane in the first place. You know, moving the Tinker out of that lane was fine because Tinker naturally just wants to farm up the BOTs in the jungle. But then moving the Dusa into the lane and then removing her from that lane again, it just gave the Invoker too much free space. And then, of course, the PA rotations with the SK as well were really on point. And then from there on, it was just spiraled out of control. Clutch Gamers just got Sunstrike pickoff after Sunstrike pickoff. Didn't even need the Sunstrike to connect. Oftentimes, you know, they just picked them off one by one. And I don't know. I think it honestly came down to that one landing stage. And then it snowballed out of control. And then there's not really much that Fire Dragoon could do anymore. It's kind of crazy though to consider because up until that point I was criticizing Clutch Gamers for being really passive.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you looked at the net worth and if you look at the CS, Fire Dragoon was actually getting ahead.
Yeah.
Right? The Tinker outfarmed the Invoker by a lot. But then he had to rotate out into the jungle and then he started basically getting outfarmed. And of course Tinker and Dusa need some time to get online. And I think maybe I guess this is where the issue lies. If they have a lineup like this, maybe they need less greedy supports and maybe also a less greedy 3 position. Because the way they ran this lineup, they needed somebody to create the space, and ET, Shadow are very passive supports in that regard. They can't just go... If they had Sand King and Bane instead of these two, I would say they're in a much better position. They can create the space. Yeah. The Tiny couldn't do... Sorry, with the language, he couldn't do anything, right?
He could do something, but just not enough. Like, not enough for what they put on his back, essentially. Yeah. And that really showed. Like, even with the Shadow Blade, was a good timing, but they couldn't really connect with it immediately because of the Scode warding. Again, I want to point that out for Clutch Gamers. They've had eyes out in very unconventional positions, like you mentioned how the Shadow Demon tried to deward them and had to expend so much extra money on that. And all of that also has an impact. I mean, he ended the game with boots. And the game lasts for like 27 minutes.
That's also giving the Invoker the free lane. Obviously, it's a lot of gold that he gets, but losing that tower early on was such a huge mistake for them. Yeah. They needed that tower because without the tower, they effectively lost all control of their own jungle. And once you lose the control over your jungle, you lose a lot of access to those resources, right? I mean, I highlighted how Deuce and Tinker, they just couldn't farm the jungle. And if they did farm the jungle, they either had somebody to be really close to them, or they were just running the risk of getting picked off. So, I think going forward, I mean, I don't think the draft was necessarily that bad. I mean, in hindsight, I guess, yeah, they could have potentially picked more proactive supports. You know, maybe the ET was a little bit overkill. I do like the idea. Of course, it's another stalling hero, right? But maybe ET plus a Tiny might be a bit overkill because, yeah, it's a solid lane, but what does it translate into? Is it really going to be like a mid-game dominating kind of like duo? Is it going to be like a Night Stalker Clockwork? Not really. So I feel like going forward, if they do want to run the idea of like having the Dusa and then having like a lineup that can stall for the Dusa again, I feel like they need at least 1 or 2 heroes that are definitely going to be super aggressive in the mid and early game that can take control of the pace. And I just didn't see that today, or in this game at least. Whereas Clutch Gamers, Sand King Bane, totally in point. Maybe a little bit too passive here and there, but in general, very much very active around the map.
Yeah. Alright, we'll see whether they can make that adjustment or not, because it was only game number 1. That does mean, though, the Clutch Gamers, as it is with single elimination, they're 1 game away from knocking out Fire Dragoon immediately here. We'll see what happens, but for now we're going to take a short break. Stay tuned.